What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. It is Sunday, November 2nd, and we're coming at you with another update of what's been going down in the world of sports. And yes, that is right. We are officially in the month of November. Halloween is behind us. We set back our clocks an hour, fall back earlier today. And which means the days are starting to get a little shorter. Sunset a little earlier, getting a little dark a little earlier. But that also means more sports on the horizon as we get deeper and deeper into fall. In fact, we had what is perhaps the best example of the sports convergence that I've discussed many times on this podcast. 1 week ago, a little less than a week ago, 6 days ago, last Monday in the month of October, we had the official fall sports equinox of this year, which was when all of the top professional leagues in the United States were playing on the same night. NFL Monday Night Football, NBA had a decent slate going, NHL a couple games, and the MLB World Series was going on. That just ended last night with the Dodgers winning in 7 games against the Toronto Blue Jays. So no more baseball for now. But fret not, because as one sport ends, less than 48 hours later, we will get the start of another sport, and that is college basketball. And more on that to come. But don't worry, there will be plenty of sports still for you to view. As we get into, I suppose, unofficially, officially, holiday season, people making Thanksgiving plans, maybe even some Christmas plans in there. Like I mentioned, as it starts to get a little darker, a little cooler, well, that also means we bundle up inside, get that fireplace ready, and turn on some football or basketball, whatever it might be. So plenty going on, especially here in the state of Utah. Some big news coming out of the top 2 college football teams in the state, BYU and Utah. BYU, without even playing a game this week, rose 2 spots in the AP Top 25 to number 8, which is also where they are in basketball, funny enough. So 2 8th-ranked teams there down in Provo between football and basketball. So Cougars with a bye week this week, but Utah was able to play and made a big statement to also move up a couple spots themselves, actually more than a couple spots, I think up 7 spots, 24 to 17th in the top 25, with a big 45-14 win over Cincinnati, who was formerly undefeated in Big 12 play, ranked number 17 in the nation. So I guess Utah just took their spot, which is honestly kind of how it should work, right? If you beat a team, you take their spot in the rankings. I think that's fair. It was a dominant game for the Utes, scoring in every quarter of that game up at Rice Cycle Stadium last night, holding Cincinnati to just 14 points. Pretty solid game across the board. They even got a special teams touchdown in there, a punt return touchdown, which was the first one for Utah since 2021, back when Britton Covey was running back punts and kickoffs for the Utes, and he was known for that. He always got a few extra yards on those returns, and in fact, it got him a couple decent years in the NFL as well. Technically receiver, but more of a special teams player. That Britton Covey, a Utah County native. So. It'd been, I guess, 4 years since that happened, a punt return touchdown, and they were able to get that against Cincinnati with Mana Carvalho getting that 75-yard punt return against the Bearcats. Yes, that is the alma mater of the Kelsey brothers, indeed, fellow podcasters themselves, although they might have a few more listeners than we have here on Water Cooler Talk. But their team lost, so it doesn't really, at the end of the day, does your podcast really matter if your team loses? We shall see. Backup quarterback Bird Ficklin got into the game at the end of that one against Cincinnati for Utah. Ended up getting a 2-yard touchdown run himself. has been playing really well for a freshman backup quarterback. Perhaps he's been put in a bit of an easier situation than, for example, Isaac Wilson was last year as also a true freshman backup quarterback. But, it has to be said that he has performed better than Isaac Wilson did. So shout out to Bird Ficklin. Isaac Wilson's still on the roster in that third spot for the quarterbacks up at Utah. He entered the transfer portal last year and didn't end up going anywhere. We'll see what happens with him. I got to say, for the most part, the younger brothers of Zach Wilson simply have not had the same success that Zach had at the college level or in the higher ranks of football in general. So his name and his getting drafted number 2 overall took their family a long ways, and we'll see if that magic starts to run out a little bit, just as the magic ran out, unfortunately, for our Utah Mammoth. Today, a strange one-off home game in between 4-game road trips for the Utah Mammoth, taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning, a perennial playoff contender from the Eastern Conference, former team of one Mikhail Sergachev, who is now an alternate captain and best defenseman, I'd say, probably for Utah. He won a couple Stanley Cups, no big deal, down there in Tampa. And his former team in town ended up beating the Mammoth 4-2 for the first home loss of the season for the Mammoth. It also starts an unfortunate 2-game losing streak for the Mammoth after they had, last time we spoke on this podcast, a 7-game win streak, which came to an end up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, at the hands of Connor McDavid and company. And so it all starts over. That same night, which was branded Frozen Frenzy, I believe, by the NHL. All 32 teams were playing that night. It was the night after the sports equinox. So it kept things exciting for our sports fans, in case you wanted to watch 16 hockey games in one night. And the 2 longest win streaks in the NHL, Utah at 7 and New Jersey at 8, were both snapped that night. So it restarted, and now, funny enough, Tampa has the longest win streak with their win here in Salt Lake at the Delta Center today. Tampa now on a 5-game win streak, which is the longest active win streak in the NHL. So obviously a pretty solid team. The Mammoth lose to, dropped to 8-4 on the season, and they head right back on the road for another 4 games, like I mentioned, starting with a back-to-back Tuesday and Wednesday in Buffalo and Toronto. Technically not 2 Canadian cities, but very close together, and I've heard that Buffalo is more Canadian than American. So it's almost like you get a little back-to-back there, just crossing the border real quick to head from Buffalo to Toronto, taking on the Sabres and the Maple Leafs. Not the Leaves, the Leafs. It's an F, not a V. Because that's how they do things up there in Toronto, folks. But before those games, like I mentioned, the big news, if you want something to look forward to, well, look no further than college basketball. It's not March yet. We've got a long ways to go till March, but it does indeed begin this week, tomorrow, with a game. BYU, ranked number 8, like I mentioned, thanks in large part, I'm sure, to AJ DeBonsa, former number 1 high school prospect coming into college, now playing for the BYU Cougars. Also, it helps, they make the Sweet 16 last year. Kevin Young, a great first-year coach coming in. Now they're seen as a top 10 team to start the season. We know that those preseason rankings don't always mean a ton, but when you've got the talent like BYU has, not just DeBonsa, but a couple other highly ranked prospects as well. I know their point guard as well. Super solid transfer player. So they're taking on Villanova tomorrow on TNT. You might have heard of Villanova. Decent team. Have won a couple championships. Have some NBA players. over there playing for the New York Knicks that you might have heard of. Well, those two teams are taking part in the Hall of Fame series down in Las Vegas at T-Mobile Arena tomorrow night, Monday, November 3rd, or today, depending on when you're listening to this. And that tips off at 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, as we are now out of daylight savings. Like I mentioned, on TNT and True TV, which luckily for you fellow YouTube TV customers, that is not part of the Disney, ABC, ESPN deal that we don't currently have on YouTube TV. No, we were not able to watch that Utah game on ESPN on YouTube TV last night because of a dispute on what they want to pay to have that service on YouTube TV. So don't worry about that for that game, though. TNT, BYU, Villanova. A little college hoops to start off the year. And it just picks up from there. Several more games this week in the world of college basketball should be very exciting as things kick off there. And then also on the BYU side of things, after their bye week in football, they'll be heading on down to Lubbock, Texas to take on number 9 Texas Tech. This is a top 10 Big 12 matchup, folks. Number 8 BYU versus number 9 Texas Tech. College game day. The ESPN crew will be down there for a 10 a.m. kickoff. So 11 o'clock in Lubbock, 10 o'clock here in Utah. Make sure you get up early for that one. Check out the pregame show. I'm sure it'll be fun with all those guys. Nick Saban from Alabama, et cetera, et cetera. They always do a great job putting on a fun show. Pat McAfee, ESPN guy, he was actually here. They did College Game Day up at the U for the Utah-Cincinnati game. And afterward, he came down and did a tour of the Utah Mammoth practice facility in Sandy at Southtown Mall. I didn't get a chance to see him or talk to him, but I heard he was there. Big hockey guy. He has Ryan Smith fairly regularly on his show. It's like a podcast radio / ESPN show. I'm sure you've seen it if you're flipping through channels. He was kind of the one that came up with the tusks up hand gesture once the Mammoth name was revealed back in the spring, putting the kind of like the thumbs in the mouth, pinkies up, tusks up symbol. So I guess we credit Pat McAfee for that. They showed that clip at the Mammoth game today on the Jumbotron to show people how to do the gesture. So I guess that's what we're rolling with. Anywho, they will be down. That crew will be down in Lubbock for that BYU Texas Tech game, which should be a fun one. BYU's 8-0, undefeated still. Texas Tech 8-1, just one loss. Texas Tech favored by 10.5. However, with that home field advantage, same spread as Utah over Cincinnati. Well, not the eventual spread, but before the game, money line spread going in. Not money line. The spread going in was 10.5. So Utah was favored by 10.5 points going into that game. Ended up winning by, if I can do this math right, 31 points. So you sure hope that doesn't mean that BYU loses by 31 in Lubbock. If I had to bet, I'd say that's probably not the case. They've played a lot of close games. Have come back from deficits in games on the road. You look at that Iowa State game. But we'll see. You know, obviously, and not a lot of teams go undefeated, especially power 4, power 5 teams, whatever we're calling it these days. Playing against big schools like Texas Tech, the alma mater of one Patrick Mahomes. Maybe you've heard of him. So you know, one would probably say at some point that BYU streak has to run out, just like the Utah Mammoth magic ran out. When does the Cougar magic run out? Is it in Lubbock next week? We shall see. Saturday, November 8th, 10 a.m. ABC. Which, if I'm not mistaken, I think ABC is included in that ESPN Disney fiasco with YouTube TV. So we better hope that it gets resolved by then. Because I'm pretty sure the night that it all happened, I was trying to watch Jimmy Kimmel, I think, and it was, and I couldn't on ABC. Thanks, YouTube TV. So we'll see. We've got 5 or 6 days to figure that out in the meantime, but certainly want to look forward to there. So yeah, Cougar basketball, Cougar football coming up. Utah has a bye week in football. But yeah, plenty more coming up. Jazz are playing, obviously. Mammoth playing. Soccer's officially over. For all you who are sick of me talking soccer on this podcast throughout the summer, it's over. Don't worry. RSL lost a couple weeks ago in the playoffs. The Utah Royals played their final game today on Sunday at America First Field, and they won. So ended off the season on a positive note, despite not making the playoffs for their second year in a row after returning to the NWSL. So some things to work on for soccer here in the state of Utah. We'll see where things go from here. There was kind of a pseudo announcement, a little promotion press conference we had earlier this week with RSL and the Royals, where Jason Kreis, former player and head coach of RSL, was named the joint president of soccer operations over both clubs, RSL and the Royals, hoping to bring some synergy and combined improvement for both teams, as both, I think you could say, had disappointing seasons this year. So Kreis said that it's not good enough to just make the playoffs for RSL. They would like to advance, as they've been kicked out in the first round for 4 years in a row. And the other big news that same day, I had back-to-back press conferences, which was always fun. Luckily, they were both in Sandy becoming the sports city here in the Salt Lake Valley. The other announcement that day was Logan Cooley, the young centerman on the Utah Mammoth, 21 years old, signed to an 8-year, $80 million contract extension to stay in Utah until 2033. Right around, he'll basically be here when the Olympics are here, which is an interesting thing to think about. And maybe he'll even be playing in these Olympics coming up in just 3 or 4 months in Milan. We'll see if he could sneak into that USA squad. It's a bit of a stretch. He's young, but he scored a hat trick already this season. He has been near the top as far as goals and shots and shooting percentage go in the NHL. If he can keep it going, if he can stay consistent, we'll see if the Mammoth bounce back on this upcoming road trip. If he can get back into that, he'll be hard to keep out of that squad, because they gotta match up with with that Canada team, which is obviously high powered. We'll see what the Americans can muster up. Clayton Keller, the captain of the Utah Mammoth, sounds like he will for sure be part of that USA roster at the Olympics in February. But we'll see if the Mammoth can get 2 guys on there, with Cooley as well. Other guys to look out for on that list: JJ Peterka with Germany, Olli Mata with it's either Finland or Sweden, and it's Finland. I'm going to say Finland. He was projected to be part of that squad as well, and then possibly 1 or 2 of the Utah goalies, both from the Czech Republic, could be representing their country as well in the Olympics. Karel Vejmelka, the starter, and Vitek Vanacek. And so some things to look forward to there on the ice as well, with the Milano Cortana games, February 2026, coming up very soon. Well, I hope I gave you guys enough to look forward to. If you're big baseball fans, that's over, but hopefully you like other sports as well, and you can jump on to a couple of these sports as we head into the holiday season. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next week.